What's up, everyone? Welcome to At the Movies. I'm Chris Porter,
I'm Jesse Steele.
and today we're reviewing the next movie in my collection, From Russia with Love.
Another 007 film.
Obviously. So what to say about this movie? Let's start with the plot a little bit. So James Bond, Sean Connery, returns, and this time he's...
Going to Russia.
But they don't. It's called From Russia with Love. This is one of my main points of this movie that I have a problem with.
I see
now.
what you were talking about when you said it.
It's called From Russia with Love. They never make it to Russia.
No, they get close.
Yeah. So the movie starts out with James receiving some intelligence that this Russian woman wants to work directly with him to give over this encryptor, this decoder thing.
It seemed to me like the general point was that this woman had become incredibly infatuated with James Bond, just out of nowhere, and it was
Should
planned.
send red flags immediately.
It was planned by Spectre. They're like, it's gonna look like a trap, so they're gonna jump right into it, and it's like,
I wouldn't make it that obvious, but
why not?
so basically what happens is that you see some of the Spectre members, the higher up members, you see them immediately. Now the guy that voices Blofeld in this movie, which you never see his face.
Oh well, they never say Blofeld either.
They don't, but he changes, obviously.
Yeah.
They changed Blofeld. I didn't realize this, but there's 3 different Blofelds in just this canon.
Well, of course there is.
I know, but I'm just saying that, it's ridiculous. I forgot that they did that often, but...
I think in the original movies they didn't plan on, showing his face.
Yeah.
I think they just meant for him to be a mystery, but they were like, eventually we do have to...
So very quickly, the story takes James Bond to Istanbul, where he meets his contacts. He meets, I don't remember the name of the guy that he meets, the guy that was involved with the gypsies and stuff like that kind of runs the joint.
Yeah, he was a cool character. I liked him.
Yeah, he was. I think they modeled Valentine from the GoldenEye and World's Not Enough movies with Pierce Brosnan. I think they modeled him off of that guy. Very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But basically, in Istanbul, the Russians are constantly following everything that the locals are doing, and vice versa. And there's some good spy stuff that happens in the middle of the movie. It's not perfect.
It's a lot of... there were several moments inside the movie where we were like, wait, what's going on? Why didn't that guy kill Bond when he had the chance? And early on, they made a point to say what their whole plan was and why. But it was just shocking every now and then where I was like, oh, it's a perfect opportunity to kill Bond. And he's like, nope, saves Bond.
What Spectre does is they use a Russian colonel, a female. They use this lady who is not really involved in the active Russian military anymore, but she appears to be.
Yeah.
And she is working for Spectre. She recruits a young, blonde, beautiful Russian woman. She basically threatens her that, if you don't do this, you're going to die.
Yeah. Typical, super top secret. It's either do this or we silence you.
Yeah. So they do that, and the woman obviously is forced to agree, so she plays her part. And the woman does not realize that the Russian colonel is no longer active and just working for Spectre. So the
defected to Spectre.
The love interest of James Bond does not realize that she's working for Spectre. She thinks she's working for her country, Russia.
To be fair, Bond's also working for Spectre unknowingly in the movie.
Unknowingly, but so the plot is they want James to intercept this Russian woman. She will hand over her encryptor decoder, and then that's basically the trap of Spectre where they can go grab it. So they need James to kind of be involved in this, and that's why they kind of keep him alive. It's a little flimsy.
Throughout the movie, you may get a little bit lost because it does sort of get lost on you that the point is to get this encryption device for Spectre. And Spectre's the one incorporating the whole thing. They're the one organizing the whole operation, trying to pit the Russians against the Americans, and that one family against the Russians as well, because they're trying to get rid of them to make it all look like a big jumbled mess so that it's not known that Spectre's a part of it.
Yeah. I would say, like the last movie, the first third of the movie I think works because it's still that whole, let's do some cool spy stuff, you're setting up the kind of plot, you're introducing some new characters. I think every time they do that, that all works. The intro scene of the Russian guy killing a James Bond that's not actually James Bond.
Yeah, the
cool.
practice James Bond murder.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the setup for that. And that was the beginning of the movie really worked, but I think it was
when
a third into the movie, they start trying to do some special effects inside the movie, and immediately it's noticeable how old the movie is.
When they've been in Istanbul for like 20 minutes, you start to get bored of Istanbul, and they're still going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
So the rest of my issues, I guess, with the movie is let's talk about the action, which is actually not good. This movie's action was not good.
It's dated in a bad way. While Dr. No wasn't dated in a bad way, this movie definitely is.
So let's talk about it. Anytime there was actual fight choreography, we were easily able to point out that the stunt doubles were the ones that fighting.
Yeah.
You barely, like, there's a couple shots where Sean Connery's actually doing some things, but for the most part, the stunt doubles don't even look close.
There was also, like, a cringy scene early on when, that one chick, I can't remember her name, but she, like, tests the blonde guy at some point where she, like, puts on brass knuckles and she
punches
just
him. And she's like, he's fit.
He's fit. He's good to go.
Yeah.
And it was really cringy.
I think that Russian dude that blonde guy was actually pretty good though.
Yeah, he was.
The fact that he was able to do the British accent, and all that, which I think the dude is British.
And there is that one amazing, like, continuous camera scene where he just stalks Bond from on the train while Bond's not on the train. And that scene is amazing.
They use reflections of the glass windows of the train and how it would look, and you get to see the reflection of him looking at James without actually him being able to be seen. That is pretty good camera work.
And James has, like, you can see it on his face in the scene where he's suspicious that he's being watched, but every time he turns his back, the man's behind something.
Yeah.
So it's just really well shot.
Yeah. So what I would say is the first third's really good. The middle, after you've been in Istanbul for a little bit, gets really slow, and like you're kind of just like waiting for stuff to pop off, and it doesn't really ever pop off. And then you finally get to where they're on the train and they're leaving Istanbul. There's some good stuff there. And like we said, the action could have been a lot better. But, I mean, they shot on a train for real. Once they get off the train, there's a part where they're in like a vehicle and they get chased by a helicopter. That was pretty bad, in my opinion.
That was the later half.
James Bond's on the run, and this helicopter just keeps like almost hitting him, just like going low and almost hitting. They do that shot like 8 times.
Yeah, they do. It's more than 8 times.
Yeah,
I can tell you it's more than 8 times. That it's weird. I don't think hitting someone with a helicopter is a viable thing.
Why didn't they have like guns? They only had grenades to drop. Why didn't they have guns?
Yeah.
If you're gonna fly that low, just gun them down. Just
have a handgun or a bar, because a bar existed back then.
So, okay. So here, let's talk about like some pros and cons. At least a pro that came to my mind. His gadgets were cooler in this movie because in the first Doctor No, he didn't really have any gadgets.
No, he didn't have any gadgets.
Yeah. So they introduced Q in this movie. Yeah. He only has his little brief Q scene, but.
Yeah, he has a suitcase. In the first movie, he didn't have any gadgets. He just had wit. Like, he put the powder on top of the suitcase, and he put a hair across the door. Yeah. That's all he really had. But in this one, he gets Q with this sweet suitcase that can do...
Has a dagger, has some golden coins in it, has some gas that can come out if you do a right combination with the locks.
Yeah, you have to open the thing properly or you get tear gassed. Has some money hidden in it, has a knife hidden in it, has some ammunition hidden in it, has a gun in it.
Yeah, and the entire time where you're going along with this movie, the beautiful woman that James is with, that is his love interest during the movie, I think what I said to him, she, looks-wise, she's an improvement, I think, over the last girl. And the last girl had a beautiful body, but I think this girl was a better.
She was incredible.
Yeah. And she was fine, but the whole time you're kind of like thinking, like, is this girl actually going to do something to James? What does she know? What does she not know? She ends up basically like, she knows some things that James doesn't, but she's not out there trying to kill him or hurt him or betray him or anything like that. So
they give the impression that while she's out on the job pretending to be in love with Bond, that she actually does fall in love with Bond.
Yeah.
Kind of cliche, but
yeah. And then, I mean, that's pretty much it. And then, like, the last scene that really happens is the Russian colonel, she almost, she goes to Blofeld, and which we don't know is Blofeld yet, I guess, but she goes to Blofeld, and you think that she's going to be the one that gets punished for the job not actually ending up, because Spectre doesn't end up with the decoder.
But it's actually the planned guy.
The chess champion.
Yeah.
He died instead. And
seems odd, but whatever.
She gets to continue, and you're like, okay, where's this going to go? She's number 3, in charge or whatever. That's a pretty big deal. And she ends up trying to disguise herself as the maid in his hotel room.
kind of cheesy.
Well, maids don't usually last till they're 65, which is about as old as that woman looked.
Old maids are a thing.
Yeah, but
That's why it's called Old Maid.
this is supposed to be a nice place. Usually you stick with a little younger women than that. I'm
Fair.
just saying. But not a surprise. She tries to kill James Bond. James is kind of like, oh, I'll put my hands up. Which, if any of these people actually just shot James right
Had
away,
a gun.
the movie's over.
One thing that super bothers me in like this movie, it was in a little bit of the last movie, when someone has a gun on somebody else, they just walk right up to the person. Like, they can't just, like, attack and, like, knock the gun out of the hand or something like that.
Yeah.
It just, like, especially the old lady in that one scene he was just talking about, she walks right up to Bond and, like, puts the gun against his stomach. Like, you can't just...
Well,
Especially not with, like, the old school, like, double fist punching Star Trek bullshit.
the young blonde woman, the Russian, I think her name was it Tanya? Something like that?
Yeah, it was Tanya.
Yeah, she ends up actually, like, saving James by, like, I don't know, karate chopping the woman or stopping her with the gun. And then James shoots her. Or, yeah, she shoots him. Or she shoots her, I should say. The younger woman shoots the older Russian lady.
Yeah, after Bond, like, pins her against a wall with a chair and just trying to kick him with the knife.
Yeah, the knife in her shoe. Yeah.
Anyways, we're rambling at this point.
So that's pretty much the movie. And overall thoughts, I'll let you go.
So, as far as a rating is considered, it's definitely dated. It's definitely not the best Bond movie I've ever seen, even though I have such fond memories of From Russia with Love. It's still a part of a legacy, though, and it's still a part of an amazing collection of movies. I would still consider this at least guilty pleasure level, which is, I think it's a 4 on our 5-leveled rating system. Yeah, or 6. I'm sorry, 6-leveled rating system.
Yeah. If I had to, going into this, I would have had this movie in my top 5 James Bond movies of all time, for 007. After rewatching it, because I've only seen this movie, I'd only seen it once before when I first bought it back in like 2012.
That might be a little bit of nostalgia goggles.
Yeah, it's not in top 5 anymore. This movie doesn't. It's not bad. It's not terrible. It just doesn't hold up in the Mount Rushmore that I thought it did. I would agree with you. It's a guilty pleasure movie. It's not a you have to own this on Blu-ray movie, but it's not a $5 bit movie.
Yeah.
It's got some top quality stuff for being the 60s. They did some some good things, but there's just a lot of. They still haven't got the action right. They still haven't got all the action scenes good. They do a lot of.
There's a definite scene where a bomb goes off and they just sort of shake the camera a little bit. It's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, but overall, yeah, guilty pleasure. If you're a Bond fan, you're gonna own it because they really James Bond hasn't made a whole the 007 movies. There's not a whole lot of just straight up duds where people just acknowledge that movie.
Well, of course not. All the primary actors are great.
Yeah, because it's as long as you got the main dude that's playing James Bond and you have an
intrigue,
right, and you have the theme music, you could pretty much make that work for almost anything. If you got the budget to make the special effects work and the action, it works. So we both give it a guilty pleasure. That's it for us. Next, we will be reviewing Sword in the Stone. So look forward to that because we're still in the early 1960s, so we'll keep going. But look forward to that.